Hi there, it's David Young, the Resourceful Coach, and what we're going to talk a little bit about today is your pitching, controlling the strike of the ball, and improving the distance control that you hit the shot. So I'm actually going to do this with a club that I think a lot of players are encouraged not to use, but I really want you to feel you can use this club, and that's either your sand iron or even a lob wedge. And we're going to understand how the club is designed and how it's going to help you to get the results that you want. So biggest thing for me always when I work with my golfers, the starting point is always understanding what to do. And then once you understand it, creating a setup to fit that idea, and then create some drills and exercises where you can then develop that skill and move it on to the level you want to. So when we're hitting something like a lob wedge, I mean, how is the club designed to help you? And we're going to use a little bit the idea of, if you imagine a tennis player playing a drop shot at the net or a forehand in tennis, two very different shots. And if we think about the racket head, when a player's playing sort of a forehand normally, the racket will come in a little bit like my hand, very little loft on the racket, and that's going to hit the ball very flat and low. And that's a little bit like you trying to hit your driver. There's very little loft. It's designed to hit the ball lower and make it go forward. If we then look at the tennis player playing a drop shot at the net, what does he do? He changes the racket from there to now opening the racket up. Why does he do that? Well, what he's looking to do, he's going to slide the racket underneath the ball. And what's going to happen is, whereas when he hit it flush on, the ball's going to hit straight onto the face and rebound off quickly. What's now going to happen is the racket, as it comes in, is going to slide under the ball, and more strings are going to grip the ball to create backspin. He wants the ball to get over the net and stop quickly. Now that's your lob wedge, if we think about it, okay? The great thing with your lob wedge is the way it's designed already, if we look at it from the initial position, is you've got this loft. You've got this angle on the face of the club, and that's going to make the ball go up in the air. So whereas the tennis player has one instrument that he's going to use, i.e. the racket, to control all these different shots, you've got 14 of the things. And the lob wedge is already designed to play the drop shot at the net. It's designed to do it. What you've got to do now is understand how it works, how to set up to it, and then allow the club to do the job for you. So the number one priority is the club's going to do the work for you. That's the key thing. There's our loft. So we've got to make sure that when we strike that golf ball, we're hitting the bottom of the golf ball and then continuing the energy of the club through. Like the tennis player hitting that shot, his racket keeps going through. He doesn't get to the ball and then suddenly go up into it. And that's what I see a lot with golfers. When they play this shot, even though they've got all that loft, they think they're the one that's got to help the ball up. And that creates then, number one, probably a poor setup, and two, a poor swing, which then won't give them the result they want. So it's a little bit of luck if they get the result. I want to give you the skill, not feel that you're lucky. This is a club that can be a great asset to your game. So how does the club work? Well, we've got grooves on the club, like the strings on the racket. And on my club, I counted them earlier, I've got 5 or 6 at the top here that they're not full grooves, but I've got 10 full grooves on the face. I want to get as many of them going through the ball, underneath the ball as possible. But the club's designed to do that. If I let it sit flat on its bottom, you can see that angle straight away. If I can deliver that through the ball, 5 or 6 of those grooves are going to grip your golf ball. If you're using a slightly softer covered ball, like a Pro V1, you're going to get lots of spin. If you're using something like a Callaway Super Soft, you'll get good spin, but not quite as much. So the ball will dictate how much spin you can get. So if we think that's what the club, how it needs to sit, we've got the shaft angle there coming directly away from the head of the club. We now need to make a setup that fits that. And what we want to make sure is that when you play the shot, is that you're always playing the ball, and then if we do take a divot, the divot is after the golf ball. Now, when you're playing pitch shots, it's all about, for me, letting the club descend down so that loft can do the work. And we're not looking for power. So what I see a lot of the time with people on these shots is they'll set up, they're standing as if they're going to play a full shot, and then they're trying to help the ball up to get the result. End result, they're leaning back, and now what do we get? We get that ball topped along the ground. We get no result from that shot. So we've got to feel that club is allowed to come back nicely to the bottom of the ball. So what we've put on the ground here, just a couple of alignment sticks just to show the back of the golf ball and how I set up relative to that part. I want to hit the back of the ball, but I want to feel like my club is going through the grass after the ball. We're hitting off an area here which is quite a sand-based area, so hopefully you'll see the sand I'm going to take after the ball, which will show you how I'm playing the shot. but my setup now is everything. I want the golf club to be in that position when I strike the ball. The handle is just favouring the front of the ball. The reason for that is simply one thing. If the handle is ahead, where the club head is going to reach its lowest point is when the club head catches up to that point. So if the handle is slightly ahead, and we're talking an inch or two, we're not talking way ahead, an inch or two, then the low point is going to be just in front of that golf ball. Perfect. Now the club can perform and do what I need it to do. That's the priority we're looking for. So how can my setup help me to do that? I want the golf club in that position. The easiest position then is if I center my body, so I feel the low point is now more in the line with my sternum. Okay, in one of my previous videos we called it clap yourself to a better position. If I clap my hands there, they're slightly at the front of the ball. What I naturally do now is the ball is positioned between center and back foot. Okay, and what that's going to give me now is the sensation that if my body is just slightly favouring the front of the ball, the club is going to descend down and it's going to hit the low point after the golf ball. Perfect. Like the tennis player, that racket carries on going down and through to get the spin. I'm doing exactly the same thing when I'm hitting this shot. This is what I'm looking to do. Okay, think about what you're doing in a full swing. What do? You transfer your weight through onto your left side. So you're actually hitting this same position, but you're doing it with a transference of weight. With this shot, we don't need to do that because I'm looking to hit this shot 30 yards. I can sort of preset my body into that position. I can sort of feel and sense the movement now through my arms and body, nice and balanced. I don't need this big transference of weight as I go through the shot. So let's get back to that setup. So ball is now, you can see through the red stick, it's just favouring my back foot. I've gone narrow stance. If I go wide stance, look where the middle of my body is too far ahead. I'm probably going to hit on top of the ball. So the narrow stance is really important. And that gives me the chance now from that position that I can hit down on the ball and get the ball to pop up into the air. Now what you can see is if from there you probably saw as the club went through, there was the sand, but there's my area. So there's where the back of the ball was. There's where I started the divot and I've gone through afterwards. And the ball jumped up in the air lovely around about that 35, 40 yards that I won. So really important that I got that sensation that I allowed the club to come down. I'm using that idea mentally like the tennis player to keep the racket going down and through. I'm not trying to help it up into the air. So that gives us the contact. That's the starting point. And what's always really important is if you hit a shot onto a golf course and you don't get the right contact, that's the bit you've got to improve first. If you do get the right contact and don't get the right distance, then you've got to work on the power. And that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. But your starting point always to improve the game, was my contact good? If the answer is yes, work on the power. If the answer is no, get the contact right first. Then you'll very quickly work out the power. That's the easy bit. Now, for me, as I said, I started golf. I was lucky. I started golf at a very young age. And how I learned golf, in a sense, was in the back garden, and then my dad would take me to the golf course on a Sunday afternoon. And what I learned was I learned golf by watching the shots and learning how to improve them. I think golfers just hit them and just expect nowadays. So for me, probably at a young age, I was learning all the time, and I think that's really important. But what I found was that, and this is one of the drills I came across when I first started coaching, is gravity is your best mate when it comes to short game, and especially when you're pitching. A lot of people comment on my swing and it looks quite an easy looking swing when they've looked at previous videos. And it's because I trust gravity 100%, and I trust a couple of things within the swing that the wrists are naturally going to cock if I let gravity do the job for me. So here's a question people ask me: do you use your wrists when you pitch? Yes, 100%. Do I consciously move my wrists and cock them? No, it just happens. And the reason why it happens is I call it the weight on the end of the stick. Okay, the weight is the club head. If you do a practice swing, just sense the weight of the club head and watch what happens. Just video yourself from face on, and you'll see if you do a little half swing, very little wrist hinge, you go a little bit further back, the wrists start to do a little bit more work. But I'm not consciously doing it. What's happening is the wrists are creating that movement because of the weight of the club head, which is exactly what I want when I go through the shot. So then I came across this drill, which was brilliant. And it showed me if I make the swing bigger, I get more power. If I make the swing smaller, I get less power. So this is an exercise I want you to do. While you're watching this video, just get up, and all I want you to do is stand up and put your hands about 1.5 feet away from your body and just let your arms drop into your body. And just feel and sense and hear the sound of your arms as they hit your body. Now you may not have heard that on the microphone, it's very soft. So it's a soft feeling. So if I want to hit the ball a short distance, do that swing, because watch what happens when I go higher. If I go higher now, let that drop, it increases. And if I go higher still, that will increase. Now I'm not forcing my arms, that's the important thing. Don't get up and go, oh, I'm going to bring my arms down, and don't try and control them. Just go to that position, let them drop. And you can start to feel that energy hitting your legs. You're starting to sense and hear that sound of the power as you go through. That's what's going to happen with your golf club. If you make a swing and you sense the club there to there, there's very little energy. But as the swing goes a little bit higher, then I'm creating more energy. The fact that I'm adding that second lever, my wrist just naturally cocking, is going to create speed. But also the lovely thing is we want to hit down on the ball. If the wrists get involved going up, guess what? They're going to then let the club descend down into the bottom of the ball. So you're going to get more energy from that with very little effort. So we're using the arms as the first lever. The wrists are starting to cock naturally because we're letting it. We're not forcing it. And if you allow it to happen, it's a natural sort of thing around us, a source of energy around us, it will work for you. Give it a go. Go to the practice round, give it a go. My shots then have gone about 35, 40 yards. If I do a bigger swing, I'm not changing the technique of setup. I'm just making a bigger swing. The contact was still very good. You can see my mark in the ground the same, and I've added 15 yards of flight on the ball. And that's about my maximum that I'd like to get with my lob wedge. So for me personally, 50, 55 yards, I feel comfortable. If I want to hit it a little bit further, I'll go to my gap wedge or a sand wedge and use a different club to get the extra distance that I want. But the priority here, what we're showing you, is if you get a consistent contact, you can learn how hard to hit it. If the contact's not good, it doesn't matter how hard you're hitting it because the result is going to be inconsistent. So that's your priority. Number one, find the contact. So that you do that by understanding your club, creating your setup correct, and then feel a swing. Feel a length of swing that you're happy with, go with it. Then give my idea a go. Try different lengths of swings and feel that you're seeing how far it hits the ball using the same club. And then amazingly, excuse me, what you can then start to do is choose different clubs and start to see maybe different distances from those clubs. Have a play around with it. You might surprise yourself. Before you know it, you've got 3 or 4 clubs and you've got maybe a dozen different distances that you can hit the ball very, very easily. So priority is those things. Understand the club, good setup, feel the swing, you'll start to connect better, you'll start to control your distance better, and you've added another club to your game. You can get that lob wedge working in your game to give you good results. I hope you enjoyed that tip, helping to improve your short game areas, your pitching shots. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and I look forward to seeing you soon.